Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. David here with our second month of questions, and this is getting pretty darn fun. So I appreciate those of you that are sending in the questions because this is pretty neat. So we will get going here. Question number one. What are your favorite resources, websites, books, and all that to reference when researching herbs and herbal formulas? Well, I'll tell you what, one of the very best ones, which excuse me for not knowing this off the top of my head. Which module do we use this? The herbology. Is it module 3, I think? Module 3, this is an awesome book. So believe me, when it comes to learning about herbs and herbal formulas, or if you're in Europe, you say herbs, that module right there is very, very good. I still fall back on that even as a doctor of natural medicine. I fall back on my HHP information that I learned in that module. It's very good. And please, Libby, I think they can ask questions. Will they pop up here? Okay, so we'll keep an eye out if you have any questions. I'll go over them quickly and succinctly so you're not stuck online listening to me, and try not to run on. But if you see something that you, or you hear me say something you want clarification, please respond. In your opinion, who are the most reputable Ayurvedic practitioners you recommend to follow? Speakers, researchers, practitioners, any books about Ayurveda you would recommend to supplement the course material? That's a very good question. Okay, here's the history of Ayurveda, and there's many different, what do we want to call it, fables on how it all came about. Some say it's 15 years old, some say 2,500 years old. When I was in India doing training, Dr. Joshi said that it's omnipresent, that Ayurveda was actually here when the earth formed, that it's part of the earth. And Sanskrit is the language for the earth, and Ayurveda is the healing system for the earth. So when you look at where Ayurveda comes from, it was originally passed down verbally for thousands of years. And then they started putting it in what are called slokas, like poems, little sayings. And then the slokas were translated into different languages. And we have the different texts like Charaka and Shashustra, etc. So the books that you read in English are now a translation of the slokas and a translation of the texts. So the guys that write the books aren't always 100% correct, meaning they have their own opinion on what the words say. So the most reputable Ayurvedic information is to get to the text. If you're going to practice Ayurveda, it's very, very highly recommended to keep the Charaka books, Shashustra, and all the ancient texts and read them. And what Dr. Joshi would say in India is, he said, even if you don't understand them, keep reading them and it'll come to you. It'll eventually come to you. And if you really want to get good, learn Sanskrit. Now, I know we don't have a lot of time to learn like a language that's not even used anymore, like Latin, but to really get the deep meaning, you read Sanskrit. So to answer that question, the best thing to do is to read the ancient texts and then read everyone's information. I'll tell you, I found a lot of faults in Dr. Lodd's information, and everyone knows that I'm a Atreya Smith fan. He's an author that I'm friends with. Even there's some things that Atreya says that I don't agree with, because when I look in the text, I read it a different way. Nothing major, but I'd say 95% I agree with him, but there's 1 in 20 things that I don't agree with him on. So best thing to do is to formulate your own feeling on the information and how you interpret it. Next question. In your last video, I noticed all the herbs you had on the shelf behind you. I'm interested in learning more about healing formulas. How do I expand my knowledge in this area? That's the same thing, going right back to the first question. Module number 3 is a very good way to get going on that. Do we offer internships? Yes. I am looking for that, and it's going to become more prevalent at OM Wellness Institute, because we're in the process of rebuilding our platform. But I would like to eventually have people coming in for certain segments. Like let's say someone wants to really, say they're a massage therapist and they want to learn Shirodhara. Have them come in and learn Shirodara. Let's say someone is a holistic health practitioner and they want to learn a lot about herbs. I'll have them come in right here in the apothecary, and they can mix herbs and get used to them. You know what they smell like, the texture, how they're used in formulation, and I can even discuss why they're being used in formulation. So you got to remember, in the holistic healing arts, so much of it is intuitive, and nobody practices exactly the same. So when you're thinking about, like, I don't consider myself an herbalist. Like when we walk around outside and people say, "What's that plant?" I don't know. I know a few, but I don't know a lot. My mental capacity was used. What I feel I specialize in is the ability to figure out what's wrong. And some people like being, and that's fine. Some people like being very good at herbs and being a resource for that. I chose to develop, hey, I want to figure out what's wrong with this person. So the next question here. Okay, in looking at a couple of homework assignments, I was grading one, and I saw several questions that I thought would be great to go over with you here. And the first one is define disease according to Ayurveda. And I know what the textbook that we use, by the way, mentioning Atreya Smith, he is in the process of writing a textbook for OMWI Institute for Ayurveda, and it will replace the current one. The current one, again, remember, it's an interpretation of the text. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of it. So let's just go over a few of these things so that way you can keep it in your head on which way we're going. Define disease according to Ayurveda. Okay, here's a real good piece of advice. Just forget the word disease, okay? The way we view disease from the holistic side is that if it's progressed to the point that allopathic medicine, meaning Western medicine, can label it, it's very difficult to use a natural substance to reverse it. So let's forget the word disease. So if a person is diseased, by definition, we're not going to be really effective. So we look for, I'm going to leave that question right there. I'm going to go to the next one. So what's the difference between disease and imbalances? Okay, the word disease is used by Western medicine. Like they say, measles are a disease. No, they're not. They're not a disease. That's an infection. Okay. So remember, we gotta look at what words are we using here. We treat imbalances. Now, if imbalances manifest for too long, then eventually they will get to the point where they can be labeled a disease by way of Western medicine or allopathy. So the difference between a disease and an imbalance, let's just go real basic here. An imbalance would be chronic constipation, inability to sleep, unhappiness, poor digestion, et cetera, et cetera. Those are imbalances. And we know as holistic health practitioners and as students that if the imbalances keep happening, that something becomes even greater. The universe works this way. Everything goes from subtle to gross. Starts from subtlety to gross. Okay, so something very subtle, it could even be a negative attitude, will eventually turn into something gross. And some of the studying that I'm doing right now on the quantum intelligence system that I'm developing, we keep repeating over and over that the universe and healing in the human organism works this way. It goes intelligence to energy to matter. Think about that. Intelligence to energy to matter. So if we're caught up, Western medicine is caught up on matter. Everything's matter. This tissue is deformed. This tissue doesn't function correctly, meaning this organ and all that. Yeah, okay, that's fine. What energy? That's where a lot of us are we understand the energy. What energy is causing that imbalance? But even goes deeper. And this is where you could be totally different than anyone else in your field. What information is causing that energy that then causes the change in the matter? So coming all the way back around to define disease according to Ayurveda, and what's the difference between disease and imbalances? That's very, that's a very tricky question and something you really shouldn't get caught up in. If you look at treating doshas, like Ayurveda states, the doshas in balance produce harmony and happiness. The doshas out of balance produce disease and imbalance, or unhappiness, I'm sorry. So let's just consider that. The third one there, 2 causes of all disease. Ayurveda is very clear. It's the mistake of intellect or misuse of the senses, the indriyas, they're called, the senses. The senses bring in the universe to us, okay? Think about the 5 senses. They bring in the information to us. Now, what's churning around in our head has a lot to do with our programming and our conditioning. So when we look at the 2 causes, we go right back to information, energy, matter. Okay? So we're bringing information from the universe. 2 causes of all disease are misuse of senses, mistake of intellect. Mistake of intellect is, hey, I know better than to eat this bowl of ice cream every single night, but I do it anyway. And the same token, you can say it's a misuse of senses. I just love the sugar taste. It makes me feel better. Grandma used to always go, come here, little sweetheart, and give me a cookie. And somehow I've attributed this emotion of eating this emotion along with the consuming sugar as love. Okay, so now when you get to a situation when you're trying to help someone, you may be asking them to give up love, and they don't even know it. Okay, so we go back to information, energy, matter. So these are very tricky questions, and I hope I'm not giving you a Bill Clinton type answer that never gets to the bottom of it. But really, it's very very complex. So I gave you an example regarding the ice cream. The other one might be, and I go through this a lot, especially with the younger generation, give an example on how the wrong role in senses can cause disease. There's things happening now pathologically with the younger generation that's never happened before due to cell phones being exposed to frequencies, Wi-Fi. People tell me, they come into the clinic, they tell me all the time, they'll lay in bed and flip through their phone before they fall asleep. Well, just for starters, aloshika pitta in the eyes is activated by screens and by light. So basically, by looking at that before you fall asleep, your body is saying, nope, I'm supposed to be awake. Nope, I'm supposed to be awake. Nope, I'm awake. Nope, I got to go to bed. Well, it doesn't work like that. Okay, so there's little things, how the misuse of the senses. So right there, that's a good example. Next one. To treat the doshas, we must understand their patterns of production and movement, true or false. Why? The answer is true, of course, because, and I'm not going to go into this, I could go on for about an hour just on this alone. Think of it this way. Vata is movement, propulsion, but it's catabolic, meaning it breaks down. Pitta is transformation, so it's metabolic. Kapha is building, okay, so that's anabolic. So when let's just stay right there. We know that Vata is going to break down. We know that Pitta is going to transform. And we know that Kapha is going to build up. Okay, so let's just stick with those 3 for right now. So when you get, the reason why you must understand it is, let's say someone is having an they have an imbalance that's related to one of those systems. Let's say they're growing too much, meaning they have too much tissue, they're gaining weight. Then we know that there's a Kapha imbalance. And this isn't the scope of this talk today, but what is causing the Kapha imbalance is what we really need to learn. Again, very general question there, but just remember, Vata is catabolic, Pitta is anabolic or metabolic, and Kapha is anabolic, building. And speaking of anabolic, how does Ama affect disease? According to Ayurveda, and I can't remember it, I think it's 20, it's right in one of the ancient texts that lists what causes, the causes of Ama. And that pretty much all disease can come back to Ama. And there can be physical Ama, and there can be mental Ama. So What is AMA? Technically, it's undigested food particles. It means when the body doesn't have the ability to break down and utilize or excrete or eliminate substances that have been put into it, it will start circulating in the rasa dhatu, which is lymphatic fluid. And what does rasa dhatu do? It feeds rakta dhatu, and it goes right down all 7 tissues. So if rasa is toxic, pretty much all the tissues are going to eventually become toxic. That's why, like, when you hear of like sexual dysfunction and everything, it's really deep and it takes a long time to turn around. It's because Artava and Shukra Dhatu is the 7th Dhatu. So the deeper it goes, the pathology or the AMA or the imbalance goes, it starts affecting the tissues. So AMA is very, very important. And I tell people when in my travels or when I'm around colleagues, I say basically my clinic is an AMA removing clinic and an Agni balancing clinic. And I know that gets us to our next question. So how does AMA affect it? It's the two go hand in hand. How does digestion and digestive fire of Agni affect disease? Okay, when Agni is low, AMA goes up. Okay, so when we have the inability to break down what we're stuffing in our pie holes, we start to, if we can't break it down, it will start accumulating. It doesn't have anywhere to go. Or if it's improper food and the body doesn't recognize it, like GMOs, those things, those types of substances will start to accumulate in the rasa dhatu. So basically, when people say that they're vata, pitta, or kapha, you're basically describing Agni. You're saying that vata has Vishma Agni. It's usually up and down, it changes. Tiksha Agni, pitta, is sharp. And Manda Agni, kapha, is steady but dull. And if you look at personalities, habits, and all that, it's just eerily strange how the Agni of the person is kind of how they live their life. Like me being a raging pitta the majority of my life, I want to transform. Like starting a new business or doing something that's risky doesn't even faze me. But you tell it, like the average kapha where they don't like change, because does bone want change? No, it doesn't want change. It wants to stay steady. So it's difficult for them to change to more metabolic or catabolic. So come all the way back to AMA and Agni. If Agni is diminished or ineffective for that person, they're going to accumulate AMA. Even if Agni is high, okay, and is burning up everything, it'll eventually start burning up systems. Let's just leave it at that. Systems, srotas, channels. And then what happens there is heat will move to where it shouldn't be. Like, and I can't quote you the exact amount, but one place in our body that has a lot of fat is around the kidneys. Okay? The kidneys have to remain cool. So when we get to the point where we start to burn up the protective layers, that we can even have too much Agni, is what I'm getting at. And that would be Tikshna. So what we want is, oh boy, I hardly ever, Sama Agni, meaning level. That's what we all shoot for. Okay, so we know that when AMA accumulates, disease or imbalances are soon to follow. But by the same token, if Agni is not correct and functioning properly, AMA is going to accumulate, even mental AMA. And that's why, we have Vikriti of Manas Vikriti, meaning mind imbalance. There can be mental imbalances that are considered AMA. Next question. As an HHP, a holistic health practitioner, is asking a person, how is your digestion and how is your hunger, a good question to ask, and why? It's awesome. Awesome, because first, and this sounds bad, but the first thing you want to find out is the people kid themselves, okay? So if you're looking at someone that's literally 100 pounds overweight, and you say, how's your digestion, how's your hunger? They go, oh, it's perfectly normal. Well, come on. Then they're kidding themselves. So now you're going to have to deal with, you're going to have to overcome an emotional response to food. But if they say, my digestion's funny, I get bloated, or I always have heartburn when I eat, or if they go, here's a real telltale sign for AMA or even Candida. How's your hunger? I'm never really hungry. I got to force myself to eat by the time it's dinner. Oh yeah, let me see your tongue. I stick out the tongue and you can see just coated with AMA. So very good. So keep that in your repertoire. When you're speaking to someone and you're kind of, because we all get to the point sometimes where you're like, I don't know what the heck to do now. Just say, you know, how's your digestion and how's your hunger? And let them talk. And you can figure out a lot of what's going on, not only how they view food, but also what's happening with them physiologically. Last question is, what dietary changes would you recommend for clients with fibromyalgia? Remember, fibromyalgia is a word that Western medicine gave. Just they like to make up words when they don't know what the heck is going on. So fibromyalgia is, let's just call it unexplained pain. Pain that's sometimes radiates almost like meridians, like traditional Chinese medicine. Acupuncturists use meridians. So you'll find that, oh yeah, well, it shoots down my arm, and it's in the front or it's in the back. And they'll have these. So let's go all the way back to the doshas. There's an old saying, there's no pain without vata, there's no inflammation without pitta, and there's no itching or scratching without kapha. So if there's pain, we know that there's one thing involved, there's vata. Now, if there's inflamed pain, then we know pitta is involved. So to fall into the trap that Western medicine uses and to say, okay, I'm going to treat fibromyalgia, it's not going to be effective. Fibromyalgia is just a name given way down the road. So let's go back. Okay, so the person, and I'm just going to make this up, the person with fibromyalgia, they don't sleep well. Okay, typically a vata issue. What's their hunger like? They eat like birds. They continually graze, they snack. That's very vata. Do they poop every day? No, they miss once a week, and when they do poop, they're small rabbit poops. That's vata. Okay, so keep coming back. Keep going deeper and deeper. Could be, are they pinkish? Are they red? Do they have acid reflux? Do their gums bleed? Well, that's more pitta. So the pain is being caused more than likely by vata, but what is triggering it? There's the two words of dushti, means moved to where it shouldn't be, or vriddhi, increased. So what has moved or what has increased? Deal with that. Forget about these words. I had a new person come in yesterday, and she kept trying to tell me the words that the Western medicine had given her for all these things. They're just crazy words that I can't even figure out what they're attributed to. Come all the way back. We had to go back 10, 15 years in her life to start figuring out what went haywire at different times, of what happened there, and then what happened here, what imbalance, when did your menstruation stop, when did it become painful, and you have to go through all those things. So dietary changes for fibromyalgia, if someone's in the natural realm is treating disease, they're making a mistake. It's not going to work. And that's one of my biggest hang-ups. I think I mentioned it last month, and why I don't feel that most naturopaths are effective as natural doctors, because if someone goes into a naturopath and says, I have fibromyalgia, and they give them substances to treat fibromyalgia without removing toxins or building digestion, the person, they may get a little bit of relief, but they're not treating or trying to affect a complete turnaround of that imbalance. We're not allowed to use the word cure, but so let's just call it a turnaround, to stop what's going on and to affect it so it returns to a natural state. So try to alleviate the words disease, any of the labels they give things like, another example, diabetes. Diabetes is a symptom. It's not a disease. That's a symptom. So they love to take symptoms and give them disease names. So that way, person, oh my God, I got diabetes. Well, no, you don't. You eat freaking sugar every single meal. That's what you have. So anyway, I hope that helps. It's a short one this time, about a half hour. Are there any questions, since we're a little bit short here? And then what I would like to offer is a $39 jar of Chyawanprash for anyone that can give us we'll look for the best write-up. If you can tell me what you would do for dietary recommendations for a vata type that has been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So vata type, that had a Western diagnosis of fibromyalgia, but she or he is very interested in coming to the holistic side. So if you can submit that via email, then and we'll pick the best one, and you will get a brand new jar of Chyawanprash straight from India, traditional formula. Do we have any questions, Liberator? So no questions. I'll wait just a minute. I thank everyone for stopping in and pass the word that these will be posted. But thank you very much.